Carole Lombard. After eloping in Kingman, Arizona on March 29, 1939, Carole Lombard and Clark Gable settled on a ranch in Encino that the press called the House of Two Gables. In photographs, it looked like the perfect American life. A famous couple, a quiet home, and the family future Lombard wanted so badly. But it never came. Lombard suffered 2 miscarriages, made repeated visits to doctors, and even traveled to Johns Hopkins Hospital in Baltimore to see a fertility specialist, only to come back without an answer. The child never came. She loved Gable deeply, but even that dream life had cracks. Lombard once joked, in her own hard-edged way, that she adored him, but did not exactly think much of him in bed. Gable's infidelities became harder to ignore, and by the early 1940s, the marriage was under real strain. Lombard was especially wary of Lana Turner and turned up so often during the filming of Honky Tonk that Turner once retreated to her trailer. Then came the final turn. Before leaving for Indiana to sell war bonds, Lombard and Gable had a vicious fight. As one last bitter joke, she left a naked mannequin in his bed. A few days later, after raising more than $2 million in defense bonds, she insisted on flying home instead of taking the train. On January 16, 1942, TWA Flight 3 crashed into Mount Potosi. Carole Lombard was 33 years old. What she left behind was a beautiful home, a great Hollywood marriage, and the family she had wanted but never got. If you want part, Josephine Baker wanted children long before she built the life the world came to know. By the early 1940s, she was living at Chateau de Milans in the Dordogne and working for the French resistance, moving among diplomats and military men while presenting herself as nothing more dangerous than a celebrity. Then the war reached her body. In 1941, while in Morocco, Baker suffered what would be the last of several miscarriages. The miscarriage was followed by a devastating infection. She survived. Her chance to bear a child did not. After that, she built motherhood another way. In the early to mid-1950s, Baker and Joe Bouillon began adopting children for the family she later called the Rainbow Tribe. First there were 2, then 6, then 8, then 12. At Les Milans, she gathered children of different nationalities and religions: Akio, Janet, Yari, Luis, Marianne, Brahim, Moz, Jean-Claude, Noel, Coffee, Mara, and Stelina. She never had a biological child, so she turned a castle into a home for 12 children the world had left behind. If you want part 2, comment below.
Jane Russell. Jane Russell carried one disaster through the rest of her life. As a young woman, she underwent an illegal abortion that left her unable to bear children. She married Bob Waterfield in 1943, but biological motherhood had already been taken from her long before Hollywood finished turning her body into a publicity machine. She survived. Her chance to have a baby did not. By October 1951, Russell was openly looking for another way to build a family. The Irish Times reported that she wanted to adopt an Irish baby boy and was staying at the Savoy Hotel in London while trying to arrange it. Then the phone rang. Flory Kavanagh, an Irish mother living in South London, offered her 15-month-old son Tommy if Russell could give him a good home, education, and love. Russell agreed to meet her. In her autobiography, she wrote that she was struck by him immediately. Blue eyes, golden curls, and a face that reminded her of her brother Billy, who had died at 16 months. Russell did not let him go. The case exploded. Publicity surrounding Tommy's move to the United States angered Irish officials and triggered accusations that Ireland was effectively exporting babies to wealthy Americans. The controversy nearly damaged Russell's career. She did not stop there. Russell and Waterfield eventually raised 3 adopted children: Tracy, Thomas, and Robert. In 1955, she founded the World Adoption International Fund, turning private grief into public advocacy. Motherhood never came to Jane Russell through pregnancy. It came through adoption, scandal, and the 3 children she fought to bring home.
Tallullah Bankhead. By the early 1930s, Tallullah Bankhead was already living at full speed. London, New York, theater, scandals, affairs, and a reputation for saying exactly what other women in her world were supposed to keep hidden. She had returned to Broadway in 1933 and was performing in Jezebel when her life took a violent medical turn. In 1933, Bankhead nearly died after a 5-hour emergency hysterectomy caused by gonorrhea. She believed she had contracted the infection from either Gary Cooper or George Raft. The operation left her unable to have children. She lived through the operation. Motherhood did not. The recovery was brutal. Bankhead spent 9 weeks in the hospital, and her weight dropped to about 75 pounds. On her way out, she reportedly barked at the doctors, "Don't think this has taught me a lesson." It was exactly the kind of line people expected from Tallullah Bankhead: funny, reckless, defiant.
She went right back into the same hard life. In August 1937, she married actor John Emery at her father's home in Jasper, Alabama. The marriage did not last. She filed for divorce in Reno in May 1941. There were no children. There could not be. Everything else stayed in place. The voice, the cigarettes, the scandals, the legend. But one door had already closed in 1933 on an operating table, and it never opened again. Merle Oberon. Merle Oberon built her life on concealment. She hid her origins, softened her accent, and let Hollywood believe a cleaner story than the one she had actually lived. By the time she became a star in The Dark Angel and Wuthering Heights, secrecy was already part of how she survived. Then there was the secret about children. When Oberon was 16, her grandmother took her for an operation in India meant to prevent pregnancy. Years later, after she was already working in the United States, doctors told her she would not be able to have biological children. Sen's account adds that either that first procedure or a later attempt to reverse it left the damage permanent. In 1957, Oberon married wealthy Italian industrialist Bruno Pagliai. They built a striking villa in Acapulco, moved into an international social life of pools, gardens, and magazine-covered parties, and looked like the kind of glamorous couple whose life had finally settled into luxury. Then she built a family another way. Oberon and Pagliai adopted 2 orphan Italian siblings. In profiles and photographs, it looked like a late-life reinvention. A beautiful house, 2 children, and a star who had finally arranged her life into something calm and complete. But the fact underneath it did not change. Merle Oberon never had a child of her own. Marilyn Monroe. When Marilyn Monroe married Arthur Miller on June 29, 1956, it looked like an unlikely but beautiful match. The most famous blonde in the world and a Pulitzer Prize-winning playwright. After finishing The Prince and the Showgirl in England, she returned with him to his country place on Tobit Road in Roxbury, Connecticut. It was a 2-story house built in 1783 with heavy ceiling beams, fruit trees, and 325 acres around it. From the outside, it looked like a clean escape from Hollywood. Monroe wanted that life to be real. A house, a husband, a child. She told Miller she hated Hollywood and wanted to live quietly in the country. During that first year, she spoke of finally feeling sheltered and no longer alone. What she wanted from the marriage was not another publicity romance. It was a home. Then the losses began. In September 1956, Monroe suffered a miscarriage. The following August, she lost an ectopic pregnancy. Then in December 1958, shortly after finishing Some Like It Hot, she suffered another miscarriage. She was deeply shaken by her inability to give Miller a child. And after the last loss, she blamed herself. The problem had been there for years. Sources link Monroe's repeated pregnancy losses to endometriosis, the disease that caused her severe menstrual pain throughout her life. A medical review later cited her as one of the most famous sufferers of severe endometriosis and noted that the condition destroyed her wish for children. Infertility is a recognized feature of the disease, and Monroe's miscarriages and ectopic pregnancy are widely connected to it. Roxbury did not make any of this easier. Miller spent his mornings reading and writing and his afternoons replacing rotten timber and putting in plumbing. Monroe was left trying to fit herself into a housewife's routine that did not come naturally to her. She played with Hugo, Miller's basset hound, and tried to be close to Miller's children, who stayed with them on weekends. In one of her last interviews, she even said she took pride in her stepchildren and wanted to be their friend rather than their mother. The photographs from Connecticut looked peaceful. The marriage did not. After the marriage ended in January 1961, Monroe had less than 2 years left. She moved into the last stretch of her life with the misfits behind her, no child, and no second chance at the family she had wanted with Miller. On August 4, 1962, she died at her home in Los Angeles at the age of 36, still without the child she had tried so hard to have.